Greetings, dear Earthlings and anyone in the universe listening. You are listening to Horror Nerds at Church, a ridiculously queer podcast where we take a deep dive into a horror film or space film and talk about how it connects to queerness, religion, and theology. My name is Pace Warfield, and I am in desperate search for a death stick dealer. It looks really fun.
Uh-oh. And I'm Pastor Emily, and I am the everlasting meme of Padme's one glimmering moment of recognition of Anakin's potential for evil.
She really has that moment. And then
Yeah,
she just ignores it.
we'll get into all the comp headings soon enough.
Mm-hmm.
Also, happy birthday to the coolest 6-year-old I know, whose birthday is the day this comes out for all of you.
Oh, also,
And past guest. That 6-year-old is in fact a past guest on this podcast for our BooTube Vampirina episode.
yeah, happy birthday to you. And also, happy belated birthday to our podcast because our podcast turns 3 on March 25th. So this comes out
Woohoo!
3
Happy
days after.
birthday to us.
Yeah.
Speaking of awesome Patreon BooTubes, follow us on Patreon at patreon.com/horrornerdsatchurch. Starting at only $5 to sign up, it is much cheaper than any 6-year-old birthday celebration anybody could ever dream up. Dropping this month on Patreon, in addition to the Vampirina BooTube from last year, dropping this month on Patreon, you have hopefully gotten, or in the next 3 days, you will get our BooTube episode on the Ahsoka arc within the Clone Wars show, the Predators movie commentary, and our horror buffs, which is our $10 level, will also get, on top of that, our special episode on the Clone Wars film, which in fact I am going to watch sometime between now and when we watch episode 3, because I just feel like it needs to happen, just like I'm going to watch Rogue One after episode 3.
I love it.
Yeah.
Also, if you have time, I would suggest you watch Gendy's Clone Wars 2D animated. It's no longer canon, but it is also very beautiful and very good. And
What
it's
is
the
it?
first on-screen appearance of people like what is her name? The Count Dooku's apprentice. I can't remember her name.
Oh,
Um,
is it a movie?
Asajj Ventress. There we go.
Yeah, Asajj. I was like, it starts with a V, but
But yeah, Gennady Tarkovsky's Clone Wars series. It's on Disney Plus. If I encourage all of our listeners to watch it too. It's not canon, like I said, but it's not that long. It is, um,
it is separate from the Clone Wars TV show.
yeah, yeah. This was a hand drawn, computer animated um, TV show that came out in between this movie and Revenge of the Sith, and it aired on Cartoon Network. It was a series of 25 short, like 5 minute or less episodes
Hmm.
that would just be like animated shorts that would appear, and it basically was designed to bridge the Clone Wars, the time in between Clone Wars and Attack, I mean, and Revenge of the Sith. But the reason it became non-canon is when they started working on the computer animated version, they ended up redoing some of the events of the hand drawn one, and the
Mm-hmm.
computer one became the official canon. So, and
Weird.
then when Disney took over, it replaced some of the events of the hand drawn one as well. So, but it's gorgeous.
Rude.
I love the art style of that. They're gorgeous, and it's short. Like I said,
Mm-hmm.
25 episodes, but each only 5 minutes long. It's not a super long
Mm-hmm.
thing to watch.
Nice.
But yeah, Disney Plus, you can watch it. It's branded under the Star Wars Vintage banner, like all the other non-canon stuff they have on there.
Mm. Okay. Okay.
So,
Yeah.
um, how have you been?
Well, it's been a whole 3 days since you and I recorded an episode, so
It's true. It's true.
been a whole 3 days. I've been good. Our house has gone through being sick, and I tentatively have come out unscathed. So
Good. It
yeah.
looks
Okay.
like one of your housemates who I saw briefly was feeling a lot better, so that's
Mm-hmm.
good.
Yeah, she was the last one to get it, so she's is a very good sign. Yeah, I'm getting ready for my travels, which is why we're recording all the things all at once.
Hmm.
Um, but getting ready for my travels to visit a friend, and in fact, on this day, well, yesterday, as of when this is going to air, I will have surprised the 6-year-old by coming to visit for her birthday.
Oh, that's very sweet.
I'm very excited to
I
surprise
didn't
this kid.
realize it was a surprise trip for her,
Uh
which
huh.
is super exciting. I
Yeah, like
imagine her
everybody else
parents
knows.
know, but
Yeah,
yeah, that's
all
cute.
the grown-ups know all of that, but
Yeah.
yeah, it's exciting.
Uh,
How
cool.
you been?
Been okay. I've been reading. The weather went through a drastic change today, which most people are celebrating. It's in the 60s today, wonderful
Mm,
temperatures, but I'm not celebrating it because it is affecting my head really badly.
yeah.
But it is a lovely day outside. Um, I watched Apollo 13, which you can listen to that movie
Mm-hmm.
commentary with on our sibling podcast, Nerds at Church's Patreon. That
Yeah,
was fun.
that
I
should be out
was
by now.
invited last minute,
Mm-hmm.
and it was fun.
Yeah, it was really fun. I enjoyed it. And did you know? Didn't realize this until we were recording, and I looked it up. And I looked it up while we were recording. But Catherine Goebel Johnson of Hidden Figures fame, and for whom there is a NASA building now named, and who won the Medal of Freedom, actually her calculations for single star navigation were super helpful in making sure that Apollo 13 safely made it home, even though she appears nowhere in the movies because racism and misogynoir.
I did know that because you mentioned it in the recording,
It's
but
true.
I'm sure our listeners, it may be a surprise
Mm-hmm.
to them.
It's
Catherine
one of the
Johnson is
fun things
amazing.
that you get if you become a Patreon
Yeah.
supporter for Nerds at Church.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
I most recently, for our Doctor Who run through, for those of you listening at home, so
Mm.
you can kind of see where I'm at in that, I most recently watched the second Doctor special, The
Mm.
Abominable Snowman, and
Ooh.
I watched the 10th Doctor episode, two-part episode with Martha and Donna, where the Doctor's daughter, where they go out into outer space and the Doctor has a clone kind of made out of him that's his daughter. So that's where I'm in my watch through.
Hmm. I am not in that spot.
And
Because I'm taking it a little slower than you are, but I
you also
am.
started later too.
Uh, I uh Vicky just left the doctor because she could only handle so much of Steven's ridiculous sexist misogyny
Right.
before she had to leave. So she just left to go be in Greece, where she's going to be in ancient Greece, where she's going to be treated better than Steven treated her.
Right.
Um, and just watched Love and Monsters. So still in the 10th Doctor and um, Rose arc, but it's the one I somehow missed. Like, I don't remember this one. I have to have seen it, but I don't remember it. But it's like got some creepy. There's like weird, creepy.
I really
But
hate that episode.
yeah, but I am super excited because the next time I watch, which is potentially later today, I get to start Torchwood.
Ooh,
So
yeah.
that's the real important where I'm at is Torchwood begins. Bwahaha. I've always wanted to watch Torchwood and like Sarah Jane Adventures and stuff alongside with the like crossovers. So I'm excited to be doing
Hmm.
that.
Yep. Just a reminder slash warning: the first season of Torchwood is trash, but it gets better.
I mean, I have seen Torchwood before.
Yeah.
So,
Um, as far as what I'm reading today, I just finished Our Lives Matter.
mm,
Womanist Queer Theology by Pamela R. Lightsey,
mm,
and also Queering Wesley, Queering the Church by Keegan Osinski. And both of those are queer Methodist engagements with queer theory and queer theology. And
mm-hmm,
they're both pretty good. So it's kind of fun to read. I didn't know that Our Lives Matter was also from a Wesleyan perspective. So it's kind of fun to discover that as I was reading.
mm-hmm.
And Queering Wesley, Queering the Church does make use of Our Lives Matter too. So it's also fun to see how that was
Oh,
woven
nice.
into Keegan Osinski's work. So that's what I've been
Nice.
reading.
I am working on finishing Ellie Engel saves not the world, but herself, because it is going to be automatically returned to the library in like a day and a half. So I have like 2 hours left. I should be able to do it.
Yep, you got
Um,
this.
and I just got in the mail the other day Cole Arthur Riley's book, Black Liturgies,
Ooh, yeah.
Prayers, Poems, and Meditations for Staying Human. So I'm really excited to dig into that more. And of course, I'm working my way through Star Wars Return of the Jedi from a certain point of view, which I'm making progress on. So
Yay.
we probably will not have the episode recorded by the time this one airs, but that should be. I should have the book finished by about the time this airs.
Yeah.
That's my plan. It's a really good one. Every I keep reading stories and I'm like, oh my gosh, I want this one. I want this one. Um,
I
I
know.
think I
And
have mine set, but we'll see if that changes before I get to the end.
past past from a certain point of view episodes for our book club, if you listen to those, you may remember that Emily and I each chose two stories, and then we did a combined third story on the
Mm-hmm.
wills. But this one, there were so many good stories that I just bumped mine up to three and invited Emily to do the same. And we'll still do the Will story in addition to that. So we'll do a total of seven stories as
Mm-hmm.
opposed to five. But
Yeah,
there are just
it'll
too
be
many
great.
good ones.
It's true. It's true. Yeah, and that's like there are some that I'm like, this one's awesome. I love this story, even though I'm not picking it, but I just
Hmm.
love it. Oh.
Yeah, there were very, like, in some of the past, I will say, from a certain point of view, overall, all the stories are consistently good.
Mm-hmm.
There's only been like maybe one or two out of the 80 stories in the first two volumes that I was like, I don't like that one. But they're all
Mm-hmm.
really good. But for
Mm-hmm.
some reason, Return of the Jedi, the stories are just like continually, as I was reading through, like just continually blowing me out of the water with how
Mm-hmm.
amazing they were and how much I wanted to talk about them more.
Yeah, it's true.
So we will. So when you finish that, we'll have read 120 Star Wars stories.
Mm-hmm. I'm so
That's a
proud of
lot
myself.
when you think about it that way.
Yeah,
Cool.
indeed,
Well, we'll
indeed.
fit that into the schedule somewhere whenever we record it.
Well, and once I get back, I think we'll be on our between season break for Nerds at Church, so that should help.
Yeah.
It'll be
Yeah.
nice to have a breather.
Yep. That's what I love so much about um, us being able to take a break during the WGA and SAG after strikes. It was just real nice to get a little bit of a breather for us
Hmm.
too.
And to slowly get ahead. I like being able to like still record stuff, but more casually, or like
Mhm.
I really love doing all of our movie commentaries at once. That was fantastic. It's like this is
Yeah,
great.
I would love for that to be an annual tradition of some sort, but I don't know how that would work. But
Yeah, we'll figure it out.
yeah, well, we are
Mm-mm.
covering Star Wars Episode 2 Attack of the Clones today, directed by
Mm-hmm.
George Lucas. Came out 2002 when I was a sophomore in high school, I want to say.
I was either in my first spring of my first year or fall of my sophomore year.
Came out in May of 2002.
So the end of my first year of high school.
So, um,
Hmm.
yeah, end of
I
my
actually
sophomore year.
know a bunch of these movies.
Yeah, so this was a big year for movies. So, in 2002, we saw Spider Man, uh, the Tobey Maguire one, A Walk to
Mm-mm.
Remember, and The Sweetest Thing. I want to throw those both in there because that is kind of the context for the cishet romance films in this
Yeah.
era, that which this movie also kind of is.
I really like to
Um,
walk to remember. I'm not sure I know. I'm not sure if I saw the sweetest thing, but
yeah, Sweetest Thing is more comedy, more heavy on the comedy side, but
mm,
still very much a rom com. Um, Kissing Jessica Stein, which is a delightfully queer film and highly recommend to everybody. Um, Ice Age,
mm-hmm.
Clock Stoppers. I'm include this movie because I love this movie, even though it's a Nickelodeon original movie. It's not very good, but it has a special place in my heart. My Big Fat Greek Wedding, The Born
Mm.
Identity. I included just for Emily because I know they.
I love Born
Yeah.
Identity. I imagine it's super problematic on a number of levels, but I love it.
Lilo and Stitch,
Mm-hmm.
The Santa Claus 2,
Mm-hmm.
Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets, 007 Die Another Day, Lord of the Rings, The Two Towers, and Gangs of New York.
So I like almost 10. I
That's
there's a couple that I'm not sure about, but like the vast majority of those I have read
and to be clear to our listeners at home,
or seen.
I don't pick every movie. I just kind of try to pick a fair representation of the bigger box office ones, the more well-known ones, and then also the ones I'm pretty sure Emily has seen, or ones that I know that either I or Emily or friends of the podcast have said that they like. So if I don't
Mm-hmm.
mention a movie that you love that came out that year, that's why. But then in
But feel free
sci-fi,
to send us an
yeah,
angry email or
yeah,
message on social media and let us know. And then we can include it next time.
yep. In the sci-fi world, though, there are three like kind of big movies that came out this year,
Mm-hmm.
kind of tying in with the sci-fi theme of the season. So we had Minority Report, Men in Black 2, and Star Trek Nemesis.
I think I saw Minority Report,
Tom Cruise,
or my sibling did, but there's like a thing with the eyes that like
yep, yep, that's Minority Report. And then in the horror world that came out this year, all of these are very porous categories, but I just kind of put them that way. But we had the
mm-hmm.
Mothman Prophecies, Queen of the Damned, rest in peace to Aaliyah. And Queen of the Damned, by the way, is a sequel to Interview with the Vampire, which we covered in season 3.
I
Um,
didn't know that.
Resident Evil,
I've
Blade
heard of that.
2, which we have a
Yeah.
movie commentary on,
Yeah.
The Scorpion King, which is a spin off of The Mummy, which we covered in season 1,
Mm.
Jason X of the Friday the 13th franchise, which we covered in season 2,
Mm.
the live action Scooby Doo film, which we have a boo tube on the original cartoon show, American Psycho 2, Halloween Resurrection, which we also covered in season 1, Signs by M. Night Shyamalan,
I've seen that one,
and The
I think.
Ring, which we covered in season
Oh
1.
my gosh. That one was so scary. When they, like, literally, this is how susceptible I am to jump scares. The click. when they turned the closet doorknob made me jump.
Love it.
So did the spiders in Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets. So,
Yeah.
you know.
So a lot of big ones that came out this year. It's a pretty big year in film history.
Mm-hmm.
But all's right with the world. You seem to have seen significantly more of the non-horror ones. I use in air quotes.
That's because I was in high school. And that's really all you do in high school besides ski, but you're in school most of the time for the best skiing. So,
I didn't know you were a skier. I love
snowboarder.
skiing.
Mostly snowboarder, but I also did Nordic when I was in high school.
Nice.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Well, when was the first time you saw this movie?
In high school. What?
Did you see it in theaters?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, same.
Yeah, I don't really remember, but I know I did.
So no drinks for anyone, I guess, because I saw it after 12 and Emily saw it before recording this episode.
Mm-hmm. My condolences, folks. Don't worry, we'll get it back.
I mean, drink if you want,
Aliens
go
is
for it.
next.
Make up your own rules. And
It's
yes,
true.
that too. Um, I have a little bit behind the scenes. There's not much here beyond what we already talked about in the first one. But
Which is that George Lucas is racist and should
yes.
not have been given free reign.
Yes. But the backlash of the first film, Phantom Menace, was really discouraging to the cast and crew and also to George Lucas himself. So this movie really kind of took a slow start in coming together, in part because George Lucas, I think, and some of the other production members were just almost ready to throw in the towel. We talked about that a little bit after in our Phantom Menace behind the scenes of just how much, like, even the actors and stuff just really felt so discouraged and stuff. And I read a quote by Ewan McGregor about playing Obi-Wan and just like how much he loves Star Wars, but then Star Wars kind of the fan reaction to those movies broke his heart. And it wasn't really until the Obi-Wan TV show that I was able to re-engage with the series and find some measure of healing from it. So
Which sucks because Obi-Wan is one of the redeeming qualities of this movie.
see, now you're beginning to understand my love for Obi-Wan.
It's true. It's true.
And also, let me just look up his name so I can get it right. Uh,
I prefer Samuel L. Jackson's purple lightsaber.
yes.
And if I had a lightsaber, it would also be purple.
Okay, so Ahmed Best, who played Jar Jar
Mm-hmm.
Binks, also received so much backlash
Oh
and
gosh,
hatred
yeah.
over the character. So he's another one who just really kind of came away from the franchise just really upset and harmed. And it really wasn't until his cameo in his invitation to play a Jedi and in a cameo role in The Mandalorian that he finally has some level of kind
Mm.
of return and love for the franchise again. So
Wait,
I'm
who
glad that
did he
all these
play in The Mandalorian?
he was in the scene, the flashback scene where Grogu was in the Jedi temple during the Great Purge, and everybody was
Mm.
like killing all the Jedi and stuff. And
Mm-hmm.
so Ahmed Best played the Jedi who was able to escort Grogu to safety and die in the process. He gave up his life so Grogu could
Oh.
flee into safety.
Oh, nice.
So
That's awesome. Yeah, they did Jar Jar dirty in this. They
yeah,
manipulated it like they manipulated the character of Jar Jar Binks
well, we'll get to that
so
because there's
hardcore.
a few theories about that.
Oh my gosh,
But
is this where we get that Jar Jar is actually a Sith Lord?
this is part of it, yeah.
Ugh.
But the working production title of this movie was called Jar Jar's Great Adventure as kind of a FU to fans because of how much fans hated the character that George Lucas and production team were like, we'll just call it Jar Jar's Great Adventure and have that as a working title to see what everyone feels about that. And I kind
Mhm.
of love that energy, not gonna lie.
I love
Um,
that energy too, except it like hardly has any Jar Jar in it, and Jar Jar does not go on any great adventures. He just like
I mean, he
votes in the
goes on the
Senate.
great adventure of helping to create the empire.
Oh my gosh, that is not
um,
great.
yeah. Samuel L. Jackson, as you mentioned, he
I looked
wanted a
ahead.
yeah, he wanted a purple lightsaber, and he like petitioned strongly for that because up until now we've only seen blue and green lightsabers, and he's like, I want a purple one,
Hmm.
and so they gave him a purple one, which I love.
Me
Uh,
too.
and I love like the coloring of the lightsaber being purple, being a color that in weird division of masculinities and femininities in Western and especially United States culture, that purple tends to be considered a feminine color, but Mace's Windu is one of the most badass Jedi, and he rocks a purple lightsaber, kind of a subtle like gender
Mm-hmm.
gender fucking going on there,
Yeah,
which I love.
I also associate it a lot with womanist theology.
Yeah,
Um, in the I think it was Alice Walker,
yeah. When she talks about purple,
woman is to womanist as purple is to purplish, or yeah, there's a quote.
Alice Walker, by the way, we do not avow her anti Semitism. I feel like
Oh
we have to state that whenever we talk about Alice Walker. Um,
yeah, I didn't know
but
about
I
it. I found the
love
quote
her
though.
book, The Color Purple, but
Yeah,
yeah,
but her the way she puts it is womanist is to feminist as purple is to lavender,
no,
and I love that. I do not love anti-Semitism,
yeah.
and did not realize that. So thank you for the education.
hmm hmm
Education.
Um, some fun trivia I like is that Hayden Christensen, who played Anakin, and Ewan
Mm-hmm.
McGregor, who plays Obi-Wan, of course, I think both are fantastic actors. People love to hate on Hayden's acting in this, but I don't think it's his acting. I think he does a really good job. I think it's more the writing.
And
George
the
just
directing.
George just doesn't do very good with writing lines. I
George
dialogue.
Lucas just doesn't do very good without other
Yes.
people fixing things.
Yeah.
Huh. So it's
So
like he's not actually good.
yeah. But if you've ever seen Hayden Christensen's other acting, like he was in this movie called The House or something like that. I can't remember exactly, but like this indie film with uh and his acting was so good. He plays this like kind of queer troubled teen character.
Hmm.
So that's always what I think of when I think of how great of an actor he is. But people always love to hate on him. But anyway, Hayden and Ewan both were doing lightsaber sound effects during the filming of this, to the point that many of the takes had to be scrapped because they're like, you can't be making those sounds. We'll add them in post production. You do have like a you can't be moving your mouth and stuff and making and sounds and all that stuff. So I just
I
love that.
love this.
Right.
I'm here for it.
This is also one of the first major Hollywood films to use digital cameras instead of film cameras. So at the
Mm.
time, that was highly controversial. Now, most big budget film productions are shot on digital camera. But at the time, I remember there was like so much like
Hmm.
anytime there's significant change, there tends to be like a lot of fear mongering about it and stuff. This is the end of
Mm-hmm.
film as we know it, and end of cinema as we know it, and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Also cute, kind of like what I was saying about Hayden and Ewan, is Christopher Lee, near and dear to my heart. Great horror actor, played Saruman in Lord of the Rings,
Mm-hmm.
uh, and played. Um, he was in. He played Lord Summerisle in Wicker Man that we watch on this podcast for season 4. But
Mm-hmm.
he is a real life trained professional. He was a real life trained professional fencer, so he did
Hmm.
all of his own sword fighting stunts and stuff in this, which I think is cool, especially because he was in his 80s when he filmed this, and he's able to hold his own
Mm-hmm.
pretty well doing that. But then also, in interviews for this film and when his character returns in Revenge of the Sith, one of the things he always said is, "I hope I live long enough for the premiere. I'd love to see it," which I just think is so adorable and sweet. And he did. He lived long enough to for the premiere of both of these films. Although he did pass away about 5, 10 years ago, somewhere in there.
Yeah.
And then, just as Natalie Portman, no. Just as Keira Knightley played one of Padme's handmaidens in the first film, another big name, Rose Byrne, played one of the handmaidens in this one, Dorme, the one who gets killed on the uh, explosion in the beginning of the movie. But Rose Byrne, we know it from Sunshine, which you have seen, Bridesmaids,
Bridesmaids is
Insidious.
where I knew her face from.
Yeah.
I had to look though because she has brown hair in the pictures that show up and it as Dorme, so I did not realize I knew her at all. Which like makes sense. They're trying to make her look like Natalie Portman.
I
So
mean, she always has brown hair, doesn't she?
not in Bridesmaids.
I don't
She's
remember her
blonde
hair
hair.
and color in that one. But in Sunshine, she had brown hair. I never know that much. Um, then the last thing I have is there are some novels that kind of expand on the lore of this. There, of course, is the film novelization. That one sticks to the script pretty straightforward. It gets a little bit more of the internal life of Anakin and Padme as they fall in love and stuff, which is helpful because on screen you're just watching like, why are these two like falling in love? There's nothing. There's like seems to be no chemistry between them. So
Mm-hmm.
the book helps a little bit with that, but there's the Queen trilogy by E.K. Johnston, which follows Padme. Um, the first book follows her rise to becoming a queen. The second one follows the beginning of her time as a senator. The third one follows towards the end of her career as a
Mm.
senator and eventual death by Anakin. And then Brotherhood by Michael Chen is a great book that takes place immediately. Well, that takes place both before and then immediately after this movie, and it follows Anakin and Obi-Wan's relationship. And it also explains how Obi-Wan became Jedi Master and became on the Council, and it also explains how Anakin
Mm.
finally passes the trials and becomes knighted and stuff like that. So it fills in
Hmm.
some of those holes.
Mm-hmm.
And then there are just many Star Wars Legends novels that are no longer canon, but still very much beloved, that are set in the Clone Wars era, featuring a lot of Jedi and stuff, doing all the Jedi things. There are
Nice.
some that focus on Mace Windu, which are cool. There are some that focus on
Mm-hmm.
Yoda and all sorts of stuff. So, do you have a
Mm-hmm.
one sentence summary for this movie?
I do. Anakin's an asshat while Padme compets.
Sounds right. That could also
Mm-hmm.
probably work for the second one. I mean, for episode 3 as well.
It's true, but
Yeah.
I feel like episode
Um,
3 is a whole different kind of.
yeah.
Yeah.
Mine is space is cloned. So you can take a shot for that because mine's shorter. Or
Yes,
Emily's
yes.
is longer.
It is true.
We can guess. I guess we can get into this one.
Mm-hmm.
Why don't you start us off? Mine are
Okay.
not really organized, so I'll just interject mine as you go.
Perfect. Um, okay. First off, I don't like Anakin. If this were an alien movie, Anakin would be the first on my list of will be my favorite kill
Yep.
because that's the kind of asshat he is.
Yep.
Like he is the worst. Um,
He is so arrogant, so controlling, so
manipulative,
manipulative.
creepy,
Yep.
the whole thing. Um, and we can get into that a little bit more. I feel like misogyny is just always going to be one of our deep dives
hmm
in this series, so
hmm
we'll get
hmm
into that. But I really like the that opening scene where Padme is in her residence and sleeping, and then there's like another assassination attempt. I like that whole series.
Yeah.
The car, the like speeder chases, the everything.
And
Um,
R2 scanning the room. Cute.
yeah, which
Go
like
R2.
R2, yay, scanning the room, but would have scanned it better. Like would have looked at the glass and then probably noticed because of that
Hmm.
the like machine thing. But okay, whatever. We gotta like make R2 not as good so that Anakin can save the day or whatever. But um when Anakin and Obi-Wan are talking outside the room, it's distracting them. They are not paying their best attention, which is, their job to save her
Right.
life. So good job. But also I noticed this time, and I didn't notice it before, that Anakin's talking about Padme's residence as quiet as a tomb. And I was like,
Foreshadowing much?
mm-hmm. Do you want her to die? Because, yeah.
Kind of like another line in there where Obi-Wan says to Anakin, "You're gonna be the death of me one day," or something like that. It's like, yep,
Yeah,
that's gonna
actually.
happen.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Um, my my next one is after your second, is right around your second one. So if you want to do your first, we could just
Okay.
alternate ish.
Yeah, so we get introduced to so in the first movie we got introduced to Darth Maul and
Mm-hmm.
Darth Sidious. This one we get introduced to Darth Tyrannus, and it's like, come on with these names, my dude. Like Jesus Christ, can we pick a more on the nose name for any of these? And it's like that always gets to motivation in like characters and stuff like that. There are very few people in the world in real life that see themselves as evil and are motivated out of intentionally being evil. Most people think that when they are doing evil actions, they have twisted logic or something to think that they're actually doing good or something, even though they're
Mm-hmm.
doing evil. So
Mm-hmm.
whenever somebody like intentionally names themselves something evil, then it's that to me just feels so cartoonish because like why would um Darth Sidious name himself in a word that sounds very much like insidious, which is what he is. Why would Darth Tyrannus name himself after being a tyrant? Like,
Which he's trying to be.
yeah, but
That's
in
become.
his mind, he thinks he is on the side of the separatists, helping to advance the cause of the end of the Galactic Republic, so that way the separatists can have greater freedom. Like he thinks in his
Mm-mm,
mind that
he's
he's
not.
doing good.
I don't think Palpatine thinks that. I mean, Tyrannus thinks that.
What do you think his motivations are? I have the benefit of reading the book called Dooku Jedi Lost, which gives some of his motivations. So I'm so I don't have as
Wait, which
much
one's
of an
Tyrannus
ability
and which
to
one's
read.
Sidious?
What? Sidious is Palpatine.
Oh, I was switching them.
Tyrannus is
Okay.
Dooku.
Okay. Never mind. I was switching them. I was thinking it makes more sense to me for Tyrannus to be the guy who's becoming dictator. So that's where I mixed up their names.
Yeah. But anyway, I just think that's so
Okay.
silly.
That makes sense.
The way I remember it, which is problematic because I don't like to call people ugly or not, but Sidious rhymes with hideous, and after his um, fall and the Empire and stuff, like hideous. So that's the way I always remembered it as a kid, for better or worse.
I hear you.
Anyway,
I hear you. Mhm. Mhm.
but then also when the whole thing about Anakin,
Mhm.
this
Yeah.
this this movie is supposed to start to show Anakin's slow fall to the dark side. Which, first of all, I feel like he's already there. But
uh-huh.
secondly,
Uh-huh.
like the whole worries about his mom dying and stuff, and then going to Tatooine to rescue her. He goes rescues her, but she dies in his arms, all that stuff.
Hmm.
But he just like full on murders the group of Tusken
Okay,
Raiders.
okay, but first off, movie death scenes are the worst. That is not how people die and take their last breath. It does not happen to that way, basically ever.
Right, right.
And then, yes, Anakin just slaughters every single
He
Tusken
even
Raider.
mentions that he kills the women and the children, which,
Hmm.
first of all, as we know from a certain point of view, the Tusken Raiders are a very patriarchal society, so women are subservient to the men and not considered full warriors, which is problematic within their culture and stuff. So,
Hmm.
but basically, that is a way of saying that Anakin killed even the people not responsible for the torturing and death of his mother and the children and
Hmm.
stuff. So, but like, so he wipes out this entire village, and then it's never mentioned again. And he tells Padme, and she's just like, "Oh, okay. You must have
Well,
felt really sad and angry." It's like he slaughtered people, and you're just like, "Oh, I'm gonna comfort you. I'm so sorry that happened."
right? And I don't remember if it's Yoda or Mace or both of them, but they realize something is happening. They
Yep.
know something's happening. They can feel it in the Force, and then nobody ever bothers. Like, I know a lot of stuff happens, but like,
Right?
debrief that shit.
Right? Like if I were Padme, even if I deeply loved Anakin, like I know this from my own life that when I have had somebody I know who I love very deeply doing something harmful, I have said to that person, you need to tell this person, or if you don't, I will, because that is a responsibility I have. And so, like, if I were Padme, eh, I would probably be like, Anakin, you need to tell this to Obi-Wan, and if you don't, I will, just because this is a
Hmm.
serious thing. And just the
Yeah.
fact that she just keeps it secret for him, and he's a Jedi, and like, I don't know, that just
So,
seems so weird and gross.
this is also in the realm of it makes me question their relationship, which we
Mm,
already question plenty, right? But like
yeah,
the things he has been saying and doing in their relationship and in trying to start a relationship with her, don't tell me that he's going to be a good partner.
right.
They are red flags
Mm-hmm.
for abuse, manipulation, coercion, and so there's a part of me that like looks at that and then is like, was she worried about what would happen if she told?
That's fair. That's absolutely fair. Thank
Right?
you
Like
for raising the
it
point.
does not like she also has a lot of power. She's a senator, blah blah blah. So it doesn't totally like exonerate her, but it
Mm-hmm.
does give me enough to like have a complicated understanding of what's going on with her.
Yeah, and that's true. Like for the duration of this movie, she is essentially his prisoner in the sense that he is a protector and she
Hmm.
cannot do anything without his permission because he's the one assigned to keep her safe. And
Mm,
so there's a whole bunch of
yeah, she's definitely stuck with him. She uses it to say, well, if you're going to protect me, you have to follow me, and I'm going to go there.
yeah,
And
so
he
she
wants to go
isolates
anyway, but
herself
yeah.
completely from anybody else, so it's only her and Anakin.
Hmm.
Or however long, however many weeks or stuff that they're in that lakeside house. And then she
Hmm.
travels with Anakin alone to Tatooine. So it's like this whole time she is alone with him, this
Hmm.
person who we know to be violent and abusive and manipulative.
Yeah, it's super problematic. Yeah. Mm. Mm. I did really love this. Is like one of those things that happens when you tell riddles to a bunch of adults and kids are present. Obi-Wan comes in. There's supposed to be a star system here, but it's not on the charts. Yoda. Hmm. No star, but it's acting like there's or no like star system, but it's acting like there's a star system there. I wonder what could happen. And the librarian also doesn't know, right?
Yeah.
And
But
then the
first he has to bemean Obi-Wan, which I hate. But anyway.
yeah. Um and then the child the like youngling. He's like, somebody erased it.
Right.
Yes, in fact, somebody erased it from the chart.
Mm-hmm.
But I love that, like, that would be a riddle, right? What is, where is this star system? It does not appear on any of the charts. And yet there are planets and stars acting like it is there. What happened?
Yeah.
And adults are gonna like not know, and then kids are just gonna be like, oh, somebody erased it.
And I think in part it's because the adults are so self-assured about the security of the Jedi Temple that it would be unthinkable to them that somebody would have been able to break through the security and erase it.
I mean,
And
yeah.
even more unthinkable that the person who did it was able to break through the security because they were in fact a Jedi at the time before they left the
Mm-hmm.
Jedi Order.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Um, this is also around where we get to uh, Jar Jar as
Mm-hmm.
representative for Padme in the Senate. He's Representative Binks,
Mm-hmm.
and he is either manipulated or in league with Palpatine in order to give Palpatine emergency powers
I think he's
indefinitely,
I think he's manipulated.
which would be fair because Palpatine is manipulating everyone at this point.
Mm-hmm.
The Jedi, the Senate, everybody is being manipulated.
Mm-hmm.
Even Darth Tyrannus is being manipulated by
Yeah.
Palpatine.
So tell me why you think, or why people out in the world think it could be
Did you read the
intentional.
article that I sent you?
No, you sent it like while we were recording, and then I forgot about it.
Oh, the article. This is one of the scenes where where over and over again, Jar Jar Binks affects the events of the film in a way of the prequel trilogy in a way that brings Palpatine to power. And we see this from the very beginning in the first film with his encountering of the Jedi in Naboo and his clumsiness with certain things is what enables him to save the day. So the argument is that Jar Jar Binks's clumsiness is a well executed front for those around him to see him as this bumbling fool, but actually through his clumsiness he's able to do all sorts of things. And then it
Hmm.
also says that anytime in the first film, especially, we see this a lot since Jar Jar is a lot in that film. Anytime we see one of the Jedi making an important decision, Jar Jar is waving his hand in the background as if Jar Jar is doing a mind trick on them to make them make that
Hmm.
decision. And then in this one, he straight up is the one to suggest that Palpatine gets his emergency powers. Um,
Hmm.
and he has seen in this movie, every scene that he's in, he is accompanying Palpatine somewhere.
Hmm.
So those are, and then when we get to the third film, we can talk about that even more because he has minor appearances in that film too, which can add to that. So the idea is that Jar Jar is, if he is not the Lord of the Sith and Palpatine is his apprentice, then it's the other way around that Palpatine is the Lord and Jar Jar is the apprentice. But some people will go as far to say that Jar Jar is the one Jar Jar is the one using Palpatine to get into power, and is the mastermind. So
Hmm.
I'll link the article in the show notes. It does a much better job of going through all the evidence to support this.
Yeah. How do they justify that pairing when Tyrannus is right there?
The same reason. So there's supposed. So the rule of two that the Sith supposedly have
Mm-hmm.
never seems to actually be followed because Darth Tyrannus has Asajj Ventress uh,
Mm-hmm.
as his underling the entire time, which goes against the rule of two. So the idea is that
Mm.
um, since the Sith, the Dark Lord, supposedly one of their strongest powers is secrecy, doing things in secret. that of course Palpatine would either have another secret apprentice such as Jar Jar Binks, or Jar Jar Binks would secretly be behind Palpatine and would not let Tyrannus or other people know.
Hmm.
And the timeline also doesn't match up for Darth Maul to have been, and Darth Tyrannus to not have been Palpatine's apprentices at the same time. So
Mm.
clearly Palpatine had at least two apprentices at the same time. So Palpatine clearly is not following the rule of two.
Right.
That's
Palpatine pretty
some,
much never does. Hmm.
and we even see that. So the rule of two comes from um, the origin of it is explained in the Darth Bane trilogy of books, which are not canon anymore, but still are referenced quite a bit. They're one of those like books that might as well be canon because while it's not officially canon, canon material does reference the events of those books quite a bit.
Hmm.
And Darth Bane was training two apprentices. He came out with the rule of two, but he started to mistrust his apprentice, so he started in secret to find another apprentice and stuff. So it
Mm-hmm.
seems clear from the beginning that the rule of two never really held much water. But
That tracks. Yeah. Hmm. Also, I forgot to mention this when we were talking about the Tusken Raiders. At one point, Anakin's like, "Why did she have to die?" And let's be real. The answer is so George Lucas can mess with Anakin enough to move the plot forward,
mhm,
because women are just a tool for the plot moving forward for George Lucas.
exactly, and that gets to episode 3 with Padme's death, which absolutely
Mm-hmm.
makes no sense to me, and it's clearly just to make the plot work
Yep.
the way Lucas wants it to work. So
Yep.
we'll get there in the next movie, though.
Yeah. Mm. I did love Padme's workaround though, which we mentioned, but
Yeah.
her being like, "You have to watch. You have to protect me. Well, I'm going to help." So
Yep.
yeah,
Yep.
it's one of those moments where we like really clearly see Leia in her,
Hmm.
or I don't know, see her in
Hmm.
Leia, but like
Yeah.
see that Leia is clearly her daughter,
Hmm. Hmm.
and even Luke,
Yeah.
for a boy.
Right. For a male Jedi.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Indeed.
While we're kind of on this, though, I want the motivations of all. This is a movie where the motivations of all the characters start to become very unclear to me.
Mm-hmm.
Um, in theory, Palpatine is trying to start a civil war, and he's behind both sides in
Mm-hmm.
order to gain further power and emergency powers and to
Yes.
destabilize the Republic
Which
and
is
the
why
Jedi Order.
which is why Tyrannus would actually make a much more appropriate name for him than for the actual Darth Tyrannus.
But I mean, since he is being insidious in his
It's true.
plannings,
Insidious also works for him. They all
yeah,
work for him. They just
yep.
don't work for Dooku.
Um, so that part kind of makes sense. But Tyrannus Dooku seems to actually, and we get this in the Clone Wars too. Like he certainly is an asshole and a jerk and abusive and manipulative, all those things. But he also seems to truly believe in the separatist cause. And we see this a few times in the Clone Wars TV show and in his book and stuff. But then that gets to like, what do the separatists actually want?
The real question. Because it is unclear. I don't know if I'm totally sold that he actually legit wants the separatist whatever. Um, because he knows that Palpatine is Sidious, right?
Hmm.
So he knows
He even
that
says it to Obi-Wan. He says, "What if I told you that the that the person behind the Civil War is actually a
has
person in the
control of
Senate
the
who
Senate.
is, yeah, has control of
Yeah,
the Senate."
yeah. And I think for me, part of it is he knows that Palpatine is doing this for power, right?
Hmm.
And he as a Sith, also wants power.
Yes.
Um,
But he ultimately wants it, I mean, if we take what he's saying to Obi-Wan on face value as
mhm,
representative of his actual intentions, which we can argue both ways because Yoda is the one who dismisses it and says, nope, he's just full of lies. But
mhm,
had Yoda actually listened to Dooku, he would have learned that he was telling the truth about the Senate.
mhm,
What Dooku says is he wants Obi-Wan to join him and he wants to talk with Qui-Gon. He misses Qui-Gon's counsel because he's in a conundrum where he thinks if Obi-Wan is able to join him, he would be able to overthrow Palpatine.
mhm,
But to what end? Just for power for himself? Or if he's actually aligned with the separatists, would he be able to make, in his mind, of course, dictatorship is not the way to do this, but if he were to become dictator, would he make sure that the separatists would get what they would actually want? Because
mhm,
Dooku's homeworld of Sereno, where he is the count of, is one of the separatist worlds. And one of the reasons they're separatists is because they felt that the Republic failed them during a period of crisis.
hmm. Interesting. Yeah, I don't know. It's hard because it just I think his idea is they do the Civil War, Palpatine gets dictatorship, and he gets dictatorship. That's my impression. That he's
Mhm.
like okay with like we're just gonna be two dictators having like separate I don't know system things, federations of stuff. Um,
Yeah. What we
yeah, I don't
find
know.
from the Clone Wars, though, is the separatists. There are a million different reasons why these worlds are joining separatists, including some of them like following the Confederacy of the United States of America in that Civil War. Some of
Mm-hmm.
the planets joining the separatist movement want to do so they can keep slavery alive and well. It's like
Mm-hmm.
great.
Yeah, and that's the like. I think the separatists are like some Republicans, right? We just want to be able
Mhm.
to do whatever we want. Hey Yoshi, and cause whatever harm we want to cause, and not be held accountable for our actions.
Yeah.
And that plays out in enslaving people. That plays out
Mhm.
in taking over economies and planets and all of
Yeah.
that stuff.
Especially since the separatists are being funded by the Chinese in George Lucas's Alien
Yeah.
race alignment, but being funded
Mm-hmm.
essentially by the big banks of the Trade Federation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Um, I think you're gonna talk about one of my things later. Where I was like, is this like the Lions and the Christians, Gladiators, Hunger Games? I know it's before Hunger Games, but
Yeah.
yeah. Um, also regarding the secret wedding,
Yeah.
that head thing, the veil, whatever thing that Padme is wearing is hideous. Of
Right.
all of the like cool fancy things that Padme wears in her daily life, who designed her wedding outfit? Who picked that? The wedding dress itself is not bad. Not my style, but not bad.
Hmm.
But the like intricate lace, no, thank you.
Right.
No, thank you.
But that also brings us to the relationships, and there's just a lot of relationships that
Okay,
we're noticing here.
here's. I mean, yes, there's the like compet and creepy Cullen aspect of Padme and Anakin.
Yeah, at one point as we're watching it, Emily even texted, for those of you listening at home, that okay, Edward, to something that
Mm-hmm.
Anakin said. Very much Edward Cullen. Go back, listen to our Twilight episodes. It's all along
For,
the same.
for real, it's awful. I think Padme and Ahsoka would make a great couple if we're already in the like ignoring age gaps realm of
Right.
things.
Because
Um, mhm.
Padme is, I think, 26 in this, and Ahsoka would be 11. So definitely ignoring the age gap there.
Yeah, but we're already doing that for
Yes.
Anakin and um Anakin and Padme. So also
Mhm.
Obi-Wan and Dex The person at the like diner thing?
Yeah.
I think there's something there.
So I forgot to mention this book earlier in the behind the scenes, but there's a book that explains the origin of their relationship called Obi-Wan, I think. Let me look at that. And it's really cute how they meet. Obi-Wan saves Dex's life, and then Dex saves Obi-Wan's life. It's kind of back and forth.
Hmm.
See if I can
It
find the name
definitely
of the
gave
book real
me
quick.
the feels from the Return of the Jedi, which I just finished. I just read the story today, but in from a certain point of view, the impossible flight of the Ash Angels.
Mm,
Like it was giving those
yep.
vibes, and I was like, because he kind of blushes and looks a little bashful when he
Yeah.
sees Dax. It's just cute, and it would be so adorable.
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
But I
I can't
do think,
find this one. It's called
what?
Padawan by Kirsten White. That's the name of the book.
Okay.
Anyway, continue.
Okay. I kind of. We don't have to do it today because I did not prepare for this because I just thought of it. But I kind of want to do it the game that's like fuck Mary Kill or something.
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah. Right? Because like but for the characters, right? So for
Hmm.
Padme, who is the fuck Mary Kill? For Obi-Wan, who is the fuck Mary Kill? Who right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm. Padme literally marries Anakin for some god knows why reason, so I guess
I mean,
there's that.
okay.
Although I feel like if they had just fucked, that probably would have
That would
gotten
have been
that
so
out of their
much better for their
system,
life.
and then they
Mm-hmm.
could have moved on.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. If we're doing Padme and age doesn't count, I would fuck Anakin. Is the
Kill
kill who you
Palpatine?
would kill the person? The person you would kill or the person you would kill with? Because we're in a war
Ooh.
now.
Yeah, it's true.
Because I could see her killing with Obi-Wan.
Hmm. Which she does, in fact, do in the gladiator scene.
And
Then marry Ahsoka for you? Is
yeah,
that it?
yeah, I'm just going to ship them.
I love it. I
What about
mean,
you?
Obi-Wan and Anakin definitely have a BDSM thing going on throughout this movie, just to be completely clear
Yes,
about
my
that.
master.
All yeah, yes, master. Yes, master. As you wish, master.
Mm-hmm.
So there's like some dom sub thing happening there, and I
Mm-hmm.
truly think that Obi-Wan would marry Anakin if that were allowed. They already seem to be kind of an old married couple, as you
I
mentioned a few
literally
times.
like commented that. I was like, they're
Yep.
just like an old bickering married couple.
I feel
Mm-hmm.
like fuck who I don't know. I feel like Obi-Wan and Dooku, if they fuck, they would probably get some of that tension resolved. And then kill with, like kill alongside, because I can't see Obi-Wan wanting to kill anybody in this movie until Dooku at
Right.
the end. Um, I think he would want to kill alongside Padme as well. Like he seems to
Mm-hmm.
really enjoy having her back and her having his back in the movie and stuff.
Yeah, they work well together.
Hmm.
I think so. I'm gonna make the fuck also the kink part
Sure.
with that. So I would put Anakin in the fuck category with
Yeah.
Obi-Wan. Um and I know like the other stuff that we've watched, there's that one person that Obi-Wan would of course marry.
Hmm.
But I also
Satine or something like
yes,
that.
Satine. Um but I also wonder about Mace.
Yeah, maybe.
I don't know Mace well enough, but I feel like there's something that could be there. But really, Obi-Wan, no, that's what it
Mhm.
is. Okay, Obi-Wan would marry Dex.
Okay, yeah,
Yeah,
I
that's
see
that's
it.
my yeah, that's who I go for Obi-Wan's marry.
Now, my personal fuck Mary kill in
Yes.
this one. Of course, I'd marry Obi Wan. I've made it quite clear my love for him.
Mhm. Mhm.
Kill Anakin, hands down. Get that man. Like, come on, kill
Like
that
kill him,
dude.
not kill alongside.
Yes, kill him. That
Okay.
he ruins a galaxy for 2 generations. Kill him.
Mhm. Mhm.
And fuck Padme.
Mm. Hmm. Okay. I would my personal. Hmm. Oh wow. I hadn't thought of this. It's hard because I love Yoda.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't quite figure out like what particular role cuz part of me is like kill alongside Yoda, which is to say both of us would hate it and would probably like not kill. Like
Mm-hmm.
find ways to avoid killing alongside Yoda. I would definitely kill Anakin if it's like kill as in no more life for you.
Mm-hmm.
Um but yeah, the like I think I would fuck Pat no, fuck Obi-Wan and maybe marry Padme. But also I could see doing that with Yoda. So
Yeah, sure. I mean, we live in a world where polyamory exists, so the
it's
options
true.
are limitless for whom you can marry and or fuck.
It's true.
Can be
It's
more
true.
than one.
Perfect. Perfect. That's what I'm going with.
Yep.
I did not anticipate playing this game tonight. Yeah. Okay.
Guess we can move then into our deep theological discussion of the day from that nuns from that funness. The
Oh
three
my gosh.
persons of the Trinity. Who would you fuck, marry, and kill? Kidding. Anyway.
I mean, Jesus, right? We'd all kill Jesus.
I'm totally using that as a soundbite. No, I'm not. Let's get Emily
I
B.
mean,
From.
it'd be okay.
He'll
That
just come
particular
back.
soundbite
It's
is
fine.
okay.
He'll just come back. It's all good.
Yeah, it'll be fine. It'll be like a game.
Hmm. Love it.
Yeah. So speaking of violence, I there were a bunch of interesting moments, particularly for the Jedi and the Jedi Council,
Mm,
around violence and war in this one because we've talked about it in like the Clone Wars. I think even in the Ahsoka arc in the Clone Wars. So we've talked about it a lot, but the space of um what is the role of Jedi? And we talked about it in our last episode of
mhm,
like part of why they do all the spinny lightsaber things is because it's more like Tai Chi, where it's more like
mhm,
the ritual and the motions than it is like the violent fighting in battle kind of
mhm,
thing. And um at one point, Mace, when they're talking about like the possibilities of war, Mace Windu says, if it comes to war, there aren't enough Jedi, and says, we're keepers of the peace, not soldiers, which I put dot 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 for now.
right.
But I think this is like a point that they don't actually take the time they need to take to reflect on
Yeah.
because in the like other spaces and realms of things, um like they just jump right into it because they're doing emergency power. The only way to get anything through the Senate is to do emergency powers, and so then it just snowballs, and all of a sudden they're in the Clone Wars,
Hmm.
right? Like literally, Yoda's going to check on the clones and comes back with an army.
Right.
And then so that's like the one spot, and then the other place that it comes in is at the very end when Obi-Wan says that they had a victory because of the clone, thanks to the clones. And Yoda rightfully says, "No victory. The dark side has fallen on us," or whatever. Like that. This is no victory. This is not like they may have won this battle, but this is the beginning of a war, and
Hmm.
literally no one wins a war. Wars are not won; they're just not lost as terribly.
And then just to the thing that Yoda says right after that is the quote that Claudia Gray made fun of when she was talking about how Yoda doesn't say a single wise thing in the in the prequel trilogies because Yoda says, "Begun the Clone Wars have," and she's like, There's nothing wise about that. It's like, okay,
Yeah.
Yoda.
Yeah, true. Yeah.
But that also kind of gets into a kind of reoccurring theme I picked out in this one as well, which I think is a recurring theme for the entire prequel trilogy with the massage. Sorry, I was reading your point as I was trying to talk. With the shadow of the dark side being able to prevent the Jedi
Mm.
from having a full grasp of the situation, to the
Mm-hmm.
point that Mace even says, "Should we tell this Senate that we no longer
Mm-hmm.
have this clarity to be able to like guide our decisions and stuff?" And Yoda says no, because right now the only people who know that the Jedi have lost that are the Dark Lord and the Jedi themselves. Um, which not very good on transparency there,
Mm-hmm.
Yoda, but okay. Um, but like, so this kind of sense that the Dark Lords of the Sith are somehow shrouding their intentions, but not just their intentions, but shrouding enough of what is happening in the galaxy that the Jedi just have no ability to like perceive what is happening. And that becomes very clear when they just keep getting caught up in these snowball things you're talking about, and they
Mm-hmm.
don't realize what's going to be the end result of this
Yeah.
until it's too late.
They get so caught up that they can't do the like zoom out, stand on the balcony and look down at the playing field kind of thing. That is literally their job in their role in the government, is to like have the big picture and hold the big picture, and instead they become soldiers and generals and all of that. Um the misogyny, the
So
dismissiveness.
much.
We've hinted at it multiple times. It is everything. Right? Like
Hmm.
Padme. I think Padme is has the force. Just nobody cared to notice.
Yep.
And she had
Well,
and it's played off I think as intuition.
in the lore of Star Wars, everybody has the Force. It's only Jedi and Force users have a mastery over it that the typical person does not know or does not know how to intentionally access. So that is my way of saying I agree with you, and there's
Oh my gosh, it
lore
smells so
behind
good.
it. That looks very good.
Okay, yes, everybody has the force. And also, Padme has it special, but not special enough to be a Jedi.
Yep.
And that's the place where like I think probably happens to most of the women who have more force than usual, is it gets channeled and interpreted as intuition, because that's what we do to
Mm,
women. We
yep.
dismiss things as intuition, mother's intuition. But she says, like, I think Count Dooku did this.
Hmm.
And the Jedis are like, meh, he couldn't. He's a Jedi. Literally, Jedis are trained to kill, y'all. And
Yep.
somehow he's a Jedi means he couldn't assassinate anybody.
Hmm.
Like, you have not met yourselves ever. Um,
And,
and she's right.
yep. I agree with you. And I mean, spoilers for our Ahsoka BooTube for the actual TV show that will be coming out in April. So all of y'all should become Patreon supporters to listen to that. But
Mm-hmm.
one of the things I love about that show is that Ahsoka says that some people are born with extra talent to be a Jedi, but anyone can be a Jedi. And she trains Sabine in the ways of the
Mm-hmm.
Force, even though Sabine does not, from the outside looking in, does not have that particular talent. And
Mm-hmm.
yet Sabine is still able to master the Force enough to do a Force push in one scene and all sorts of stuff. So it's clear.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
I think you're onto something about that intuition thing, because otherwise Sabine probably would have been considered a Jedi too when she was a kid.
Mm-hmm. Also, she's a Mandalorian, which feels like extra complicated to be chosen as a Jedi.
True, since the Mandalorians and Jedi supposedly hate each other.
Yeah. I mean, she also was born in a time when the Jedi weren't picking people anymore. So there's that. But
Oh, I guess that's right. For some reason, I thought she was old enough that she would have been like a few years old
I mean,
or I don't know. It's not clear.
I don't think she was.
Yeah.
Oh, she was old enough. She might have been. I don't know. Um, but also then like we get the super creepy line from Anakin of "I can sense everything going on in that room."
Mm-hmm.
Creepy McCreeperson.
Yep.
Um, they assume the assassin is he, which like happens a fair amount in some shows and movies where there's like a surprise at different pronouns being at somebody not being a man. Um, and that's partly to like emphasize the egalitarian nature. A lot of times that's not the case in this. They're just being misogynists and then
Mm-hmm.
yeah. Um
And at this point too, speaking of that, I mean, the fact that the both Jedi were assuming that the assassin was a he. At this point, also the Jedi Council is almost all men.
yeah, I was noticing that there was the one
In the Phantom Menace, there were a lot more women on the council than there are in this one.
there was the one woman who has like the lip her lip painted.
Hmm.
That was like the only one I could see
Yeah.
in the realm of Jedi Council this time. Yeah. Super yeah. So that's awful. And then the like the start of their relationship and Anakin courting Padme is Padme saying, "Please don't look at me like that." Anakin saying, "Why not?" And Padme saying, "It makes me feel uncomfortable." And then he responds with, "Yes,
Mhm.
milady." And that's like his sarcastic it feels like the sarcastic, abusive, isolating, gaslighty,
Mhm.
manipulating person's like, "Yes,
Yeah.
ma'am. Yes, milady." Ugh. He's just so creepy and so awful. And I don't understand
Yep.
how, unless it's like Stockholm syndrome, which is not really a thing.
Yep. I don't get it either. This movie does a very shitty job of convincing us that there's any chemistry and actual feelings between them, except for Anakin's possessiveness for Padme.
Mm-hmm.
That's the
Mm-hmm.
only feeling that like legit comes through is his possessiveness.
Yeah.
Um, we already talked about the queerness of our other relationships, so I'm not gonna go into that. But there's a fair like beyond even just like slash pairing in this movie. Like the whole master apprentice relationship just feels so gay,
I mean, if nothing else, it's just so kinky.
right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. It's, and they're so much closer in age than I think like, you could literally, if any of these folks were actually younglings, right? Like,
hmm,
you could technically be a youngling while your master is a youngling and just like be starting and aging out, right? Like they're not that far. They're not necessarily that far apart in age.
yeah, most Jedi who are humanoid, who are humans at least, given the range of a human lifespan, pass the trials somewhere in between the age of 18 and 22.
Hmm.
Obi-Wan passed his trials at 21 and took on Anakin as a Padawan when Anakin was 8. And but Anakin became a Padawan a little bit younger than is typical. Most become Padawans around the age of 12, which is around the age Ahsoka becomes a Padawan too. So
Mm-hmm.
in theory, one could take on a Padawan as soon as one becomes a Jedi Knight, and your Padawan would only be 6 years younger than you
Mm-hmm.
if you're both human, given the human lifespan.
Mm-hmm.
And we actually see this happen in I keep bringing up the High Republic books, but they're so good. But Vernestra Rowe, one of my favorite Jedi in the High Republic series, is the youngest person to become knighted as a Jedi in history or something like that. And she was
Hmm.
knighted at the age of 16. And of course it's a
Oh
woman
wow.
because women are the better Jedi, so
Mm-hmm.
much better than the male Jedis.
Yeah, the
Um,
male Jedi's just don't have what it takes. They need a
yeah,
bit longer to catch up to the real Jedi's.
but she takes on a Padawan who is 14. So there's only like a 2-year age difference between her and her Padawan.
That would be weird.
Hmm.
Mhm. Mhm.
Um, we talk about this in our Clone Wars boot tube, so I don't want to repeat it too much, but I do want to. But and I also think we'll talk about it a lot more in our Revenge of the Sith episode because we see more
Mhm.
of the clones there. We don't see much of them here until the very end.
Yeah.
But the clones are bred to fight. And so that gives us a question about their autonomy and how they are treated in the galaxy and basically
Mhm.
treated as a servant class to the Republic, who are like basically cannon fodder. Essentially, they're treated by the Republic the same way the droid army is treated by the Separatists. But these are actually living beings.
Mhm. Well, and there is in Clone Wars, the show, there is like an episode or an arc that has this one Jedi who has the best track record of winning, also
Yeah.
has the highest body count.
Yep. And we also
And that,
find out that he's a dark Jedi who gives his allegiance to the dark side of the Force at the end. Spoiler alert of
yeah.
that
I
trilogy,
mean,
but
I mean, yes, but like there is that aspect to it that
mhm.
is just so. And then like the Order 66, where we find out that like they've all been implanted with this thing to make them automatically flip the switch and attack
Yep.
the Jedi. And yeah, there's so much about breeding a clone army. Every single word. Breeding
Mhm.
clone army. All of them.
Right. And
Yeah.
that also like there have especially like we talked about in when did we talk about this? Oh, we talked about this in our Alien Resurrection episode about
When we
which
talked
we just
about Star
recorded.
Wars and aliens.
Yeah, about but we were talking about since Ripley is a clone in that one about kind of the
Mm-hmm.
ethics of cloning, also the reactionism of cloning in pop culture
Mm-hmm.
to the cloning of the sheep dolly.
Mm-hmm.
But around that time, there's all sorts of theological discussion about would clones have souls since they are a clone of another living being, or do they not have souls and stuff like that?
Mm-hmm.
That's this weird dualism between body and soul that I reject personally. But still, it's like interesting theological questions about not just
Yeah.
the ethics of cloning, because there are ethical questions to talk about there, but also
Mm-hmm.
just kind of what it means ontologically. Ontologically is a big fancy word for like to the core of one's being to be a clone, an exact replica of somebody else. Is your life
Mm-hmm.
fully your own? Is your life somebody else's? Those kind of questions that theology continues to wrestle with, and that's one of the things I love about theology is
Yeah.
the ability to wrestle with these questions.
Yeah. I think the ELCA even came out with a statement, a social statement around
Yeah.
then on, I don't know if it was on cloning or if it was like broader genetic modification, genetic stuff. Um, yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
It's just,
yeah. And the last thing I have for this is each of the trilogies is kind of reacted. We talked about this before a few times, but each of the trilogies of Star Wars reacts to the time and place it's in. So the
mm-hmm.
original trilogy is kind of a response to the Cold War and the
Mm-hmm.
USSR and all of those things. This trilogy is very much, especially this movie and Revenge of the Sith, are both reactions to kind of post 9/11 uh, warmongering, all that kind of stuff. And we see
Mm-hmm.
this even more in the next film, but in this one, there's like intentionally commentary on like the state of the political world at the time and this kind of rise. So, in on one sense, Palpatine's rise to power is intentionally mirroring Hitler. Like George Lucas has said that,
Mm-hmm.
like he was kind of inspired by the rise of Hitler, but also it's very much this kind of rise of fascism, which we are seeing in the United States, both post 9/11, but even more so now, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then the fall of the republic into the empire is intentionally kind of mirroring Rome, the fall of the Roman Republic, and becoming turning into the empire. That gets to your gladiator battle and stuff like that. And
Mm-hmm.
also the chariot race scene we have in the Phantom Menace, just very intentionally like kind of bringing to mind this kind of George Lucas said he was inspired in part from some of the biblical epic films that all kind of focus on Rome and stuff like that, from like Spartacus and movies like that.
Yeah.
Um, and then also just kind of the imagery of this movie with Coruscant and the Jedi Temple is intentionally designed to be dystopian looking, very brutalist architecture, as opposed to like the very beautiful, more uh, a very different architectural design of a place like
Naboo.
Naboo, for instance,
Hmm.
compared to the brutalist of the Jedi Temple.
Yeah. I do think that going back to what you were saying about Hitler and post 9/11 and all of that stuff, I do think it's interesting because there are, like, each of the trilogies are, excuse me, each of the trilogies do have their own focus, their own emphasis in where they're at when they're created chronologically.
Hmm.
I have a helicopter that wants to hang out with us. And this one, one of the things about the way this one reflects a post 9/11 also feels like it's not just like a fear mongering thing, but an inevitability of war
Mm,
that was definitely how the war in Iraq and Afghanistan were portrayed,
yeah.
as far as I like could tell as a high schooler, right? But like they were
Hmm.
portrayed by and large as inevitabilities. They
Yeah.
had to happen. And the Clone Wars is decidedly an inevitability kind of situation. It is the Jedi literally talking about, like, we don't want, like, we're not ready for a war. We don't necessarily want a war. I'm just going to check these
Hmm.
out. Emergency powers, army, clone army, we're
Yeah.
fighting a war.
And especially inevitable because Palpatine is on both sides, behind both sides of the war. And that
Mm-hmm.
is kind of a conspiracy theory about the Bush administration, which there is some truth, there are pieces of truth to, but it's still unclear exactly what happened. Where the Bush administration has been criticized for, well,
Making shit up.
rightly making shit up about Iraq. There were no weapons of mass destruction there, and no
Mm-hmm.
evidence of it, and yet they made that up in order to justify it. So it seems like
Mm-hmm.
the inevitability was the reason it was inevitable was because they were planting stuff so that they could justify their action. Like
Mm-hmm.
they already knew war is what they wanted. So how do we get there? And that's also what's happening with the Palpatine. I want a war. How do I make the war happen?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I agree 100% with you there. Well, I guess I was thinking this would be a short episode, and here we are after 45 minutes. Because like our outline, literally, folks, is like shorter, significantly shorter than most of our outlines. Yet we still ended up going all good stuff though, not in a bad way.
Mm-hmm.
But we can get into our force slur then. I totally forgot about this section, so you have some notes there, and I'll just agree with them because that's what I would say too.
So the main things for me for Force lore is like the ways it are connected to that last are connected to that last battle between Yoda
Hmm.
and Dooku. That lightsabers can catch Force lightning,
But also,
as
Yoda caught it in his hand too.
Obi-Wan shows us, and so can Yoda.
Yeah.
Just,
Yep, I
you
love it.
know, like you do.
Hmm.
Um, and then also physical disabilities and low mobility, while like general walking around and movement, does
Hmm.
not actually mean you can't do forced gymnastics.
Yeah,
And like
and
there's an argument that like Yoda was exaggerating the need for the cane and
yeah, which I don't buy. I feel like my understanding of how the Force works in those is that one can draw on the Force kind of like one might use caffeine or one might use a steroid or something, which will temporarily
mm,
give you added strength, but it's not something that's sustainable. So once you do that after that battle, he immediately has to go back to his cane and looks even more exhausted than he did
yeah.
before.
I was gonna say, and it might be that like using a cane and using assistive devices actually allows him to use more force energy when fighting because
Mhm.
he has those to rest in
Yeah.
when he's done.
And to be fair, there was a critic, I can't remember who, when this movie came out, that was very I love the Yoda fight scene. I think it's really cool. I think when I
Yeah.
was in the theaters and saw this, I think it was even on opening night. Like people were during that scene, like people just went wild in the audience. People loved it.
Hmm.
But like a critic, I think rightly pointed out that it kind of undermines the message of Empire Strikes Back with Yoda, which is that greatness does not have to be a specific way of force gymnastics and fighting. The
Hmm.
greatness and power of the force can come in other ways too, such as wisdom, such as being able to move objects and stuff like that. So
Hmm.
I get that too. Like it's kind of putting Yoda into a specific mold of what a Jedi is, as opposed to this more diverse understanding of Jedi based on their differing needs and body sizes and
Yeah.
skills and all that stuff.
Yeah, but they were going to do that to, I mean, they were going to do that to Yoda no matter what. Sorry about the helicopter.
It's-
They were going to do that to Yoda no matter what because no matter what, he was going to become this master strategist for the war.
Yeah, but one can be a strategist without participating in the fighting too.
I mean, yeah, I don't know. I think it was inevitable.
Yeah, agreed,
Not
agreed.
that it had to be inevitable, but they made it inevitable.
And especially like Luke's knowledge of Yoda being that Yoda was a great warrior, well, that had to have come from somewhere.
Hmm.
So it makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah. So, Pace, what are you rating the film?
Okay, out of 10 kyber crystals, I'll rate this 3. And the only reason it gets 3 are because there's one kyber crystal for Obi-Wan, because I love Obi-Wan in this movie. There's one kyber crystal for the Count Dooku Yoda lightsaber fight, which is pretty cool. And there's also light there's one kyber crystal for the Anakin Dooku fight, where Anakin briefly wields two lightsabers and does the same technique that he ends up teaching Ahsoka, and she does even better at it than him. So those are why there are 3, but there are literally no more than
One
that.
for each.
Yeah, because like honestly, even the movie, like it did not age well. It looks so bad because of the over reliance on CGI. It just looks so bad.
It
It's
was right
not
in
aged
that time
well.
where CGI was big, and so everything was CGI.
And
Yeah.
like even when we were watching, I'm like, why did this need to like I would text Emily, I was like, George, why did this need to be CGI? This could have just easily been shot with like real people, but like the
Well,
clones were made out of CGI too, not even people in suits. Like most of the clones we see on screen are completely CGI. It's like, why? Just hire somebody to wear a suit. There's no reason for it.
that's like the when we got to that very last scene of the clones, and I texted and I was like, "Here, I thought the Clone Wars movie had already started
Yep.
because it really does look like the animated." Yeah,
And my favorite kill will be
I don't even remember what kills there
Anakin's
were.
pride, which only stays dead for a few minutes, but when he loses so badly to Dooku, love it. But then, of course, he gets his pride back really quickly, sadly. But
I mean, yeah.
what about you?
Um, yeah, I don't. It's not a good one. Um, I will give the opening, like the second assassination of Padme, a Kyber crystal, and
Hmm.
I will give that final battle a Kyber crystal, and I will give Padme overall, but especially when she's like in the gladiator realm, a Kyber
Hmm.
crystal.
Are you giving any kyber crystals to the puns? Like when Obi-Wan says she seems to be on top of things when she's literally climbing up the tower
I'll
and
give
stuff
a
like
half
that.
a Kyber crystal to those.
There are so many puns in this movie. Like
I
when
know.
C-3PO is like, "I'm beside myself," when his head is literally right next to his body.
I loved that part. Okay. Yeah. I love that part. Okay.
It got to the point where the puns were taking me out of the movie a little bit. Like, oh my
Oh
god, this is ridiculous. Which to me meant
no.
Emily must be really vibing with this. So,
Yeah.
oh yeah, I was supposed to be taking notes. Sorry, I'm petting dogs. Sorry.
Apology rejected.
Do you have a yeah? Do you have a favorite kill?
Um, oof. I'm not actually a fan of any of the real kills that
Yeah,
happen
like
in
the
it.
Tusken Raiders, not a favorite kill.
Not
It was
not a
shitty.
favorite kill at all. Shmi, not a favorite
Yeah,
kill. Um, Dorme, not a favorite kill.
the bounty hunter, not a favorite kill.
I mean,
The first bounty hunter. The death of
yeah.
Jango Fett might be a favorite kill though, when his head
I
gets
know, I was like, well, it's like the only place where you can kill a Mandalorian with a lightsaber.
right.
Just clean decapitation. I was trying to remember if Padme killed any of the animals or did
I
like
don't
any
remember.
killings herself.
She definitely does a lot of blasted shooting of the droids and killing the droids, but I don't know if she killed any of the
Yeah.
animals.
I guess I'm gonna go Jango Fett.
Okay, fair.
Because it was a like really good one, and I remember in Clone Wars when Boba Fett is like has his whole vendetta to kill Mace because
Hmm.
Mace killed his dad.
Yep.
Um,
Did you have any jump scares?
I don't think I did
Yeah.
actually. Yeah.
I think when I saw this in theaters, I might have had one, and it was when the Anakin's lightsaber was destroyed in the press thing, because I was like thinking that like he got crushed, but no, it's just the lightsaber.
Mm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
but that was like in the theaters, and since then not, so that doesn't really count. So.
Mm-hmm.
Well, our next movie we already recorded, which was part of my confusion, but we recorded Alien Resurrection with Jeremy Cobb. Such a great guest. So definitely tune
Mm-hmm.
into that episode next week, and we'll talk even more about cloning in that one.
Yes, indeed we will.
Again, how
Um,
these two franchises seem to play off each other in weird ways.
I know. It's actually been really cool to see how they intermingle and stuff. And then in 2 weeks, we will see we will see you all. No, we won't. We'll hear you all. No, we won't. We'll talk at you all for Star Wars Episode 3 Revenge of the Sith. So we're excited about that. And that's
Woo.
it for our show. Our theme music was by Matt May. Horror Nerds at Church releases seasonally on Thursdays. Please comment, rate, and subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Support us on Patreon and get access to exclusive movie commentary episodes, YouTube episodes, and more bonus content by going to patreon.com/horrornerdsatchurch. Starting at only $5 to sign up, it's cheaper than building a droid army or a
So
clone
much
army.
better.
Much more
Yep.
ethical. Follow us on social media, Facebook and Instagram at Horror Nerds at Church, and Blue Sky and Twitter at HNACPOD for all the latest updates about upcoming films, news, and other announcements. Until next time, please don't look at me like that. It makes me feel uncomfortable.
Or don't use a production picture of Obi-Wan and mistakenly think that it is Jesus.
Or do, because it's awesome.
Except Jesus was not white.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. But I love when people do that. Oh, it's so good.